These were the Ferraris of the 30s. I mean, so everything in that car, the DNA in that car came from Vittorio Jano and Gioacchino Colombo, and the group that actually built these cars. They ultimately went to Modena to work with Ferrari post-war.
Welcome to Tiafo Garage. I'm Greg. Today we have part 2 of our chronicle of a visit to Patrick Ottis's classic Ferrari shop in Berkeley, California. In this episode, he talks about the cars in the second bay, and also he offers some tips and stories with respect to the storied history between Alfa Romeo and Ferrari and the 30s, going deeper than I ever have on that topic, and I learned a lot and really enjoyed it. I hope you do too. Chris and I drove our respective Dinos, being that he's a Ferrari guy, and he's actually a known Dino guy as well. Welcome to Tiafo Garage, where we try it and find out. On this channel, we feature DIY on some classic cars. We also chronicle the classic car ownership experience here in the San Francisco Bay Area in California.
Tiafo Garage.
This 330 GTC here, the silver car, is here for, it's got some kind of run issue that I'm going to look at probably tomorrow or Monday. We service about certainly a dozen, probably more than that, 330 GTCs, maybe as many as 15 or 16, 17. 330 GTCs are a popular car in the Bay Area. There are a lot of them here. The blue car is the very first 330 GTC. It was the prototype. It was the Geneva show car in 1966. If you had a 330 GTC brochure, this is the car that's on the cover of that brochure. And it's different than the other 330 GTCs in many ways. Very first car used an exhaust system from a 275 GTB. It was painted silver, not black. Under the hood, there's more small little differences, makes it a little bit special. A dear friend of Donovan's and I made an exhaust system for it. Because of the brochure was in color. And so we know that the car, when I first worked on this car, it was racing red. And the beautiful little Dino in the other room, it was racing red when I first saw it. This car is now in the correct livery in blue like it is, but because of the color brochure, we could see that the exhaust system was silver. And I was told decades ago, they were never silver. We've been through this. But at any rate, we have done this exhaust system in silver, and it's how it was born. This car is also very special in a number of ways. First of all, this is an Alfa Romeo. This is a 6C 1750 Grand Sport Brianza. This car ran Mille Miglia in 1929 and 1930. It belongs to a woman in New Jersey. It's here for a motor rebuild. I nearly always have a pre-war Alfa here for a motor or something, because I'm weak-kneed about these cars. These were the Ferraris of the 30s. I mean, so everything in that car, the DNA in that car came from Vittorio Jano and Gioacchino Colombo, and the group that actually built these cars. They ultimately went to Modena to work with Ferrari post-war. People don't understand the importance of these cars. What I like about this car is the woman that owns this understands that it's okay not to make this an Easter egg. This car was painted in the UK sometime during the Second War, and she's okay with it not being, I'm gonna get, it's okay to have brush paint strokes. The paint on this firewall was done in 1928. This is how the car was delivered by Alfa Romeo. It's okay to leave it like that. It's okay to service and put the motor back in it and let it be patinated. I just can't be strong enough about that, you know. Everybody has to make these cars perfect. Well, to my mind, it is perfect. Alfa Romeo in these years built the chassis and delivered a running chassis, and the chassis got delivered to the coach builder. These fenders and this coachwork was built by Brianza on the outskirts of Milano. Whether it was touring or Zagato or whatever, the bare chassis is how the car ultimately went to the coach builder. There's a good story about Brianza. So if you don't know anything about Brianza, Brianza only existed for a couple of years, and what happened was Zagato had become sort of a primary coach builder for Alfa Romeo. and ultimately did some things for Ferrari as well. But Zagato went into receivership, went broke sometime in about 1929. And all the guys that worked at Zagato needed to continue to have a job. So about 20 of these guys walked up the street, and the street was named Brianza, and they leased a warehouse, and they continued to build bodies for Alfa Romeo. And that's why these are called Brianza-built cars. By about 1931, by the end of 30 into 31, Zagato became solvent again. And so these 20 guys walked back down to the street, and they went back to work for Zagato. So the silver Daytona here belongs to a guy, nice guy, and it's here for a suspension fix. This job will probably take 5 weeks or something by the time we get the plating back, assemble this. And dark red car on the lift over there is a 275 GTD from 1965. That car's here for a motor rebuild. That car spent all of its life up until about 2 years ago in France. Very original car. It was built in kind of a silver blue, delivered to its first owner in the south of France in the silver blue livery. And the first week that the guy had it, he decided he didn't like the silver blue, and he sent it back to Paris, and they painted it this color. And this is the paint that was on it since '65. I mean, it was silver blue for a week. The car on the lift over here is a 500 Mondial. This car got an interesting history, and I really like telling the story. In 1954, Ferrari was wooing Mike Hawthorne as a driver for their Formula One team. This car was built for an American who lived on the East Coast. This chassis was built in Milano by a company called Gilco, and then Gilco sent the chassis to Ferrari. Ferrari put the driveline in it, finished it, and then made it run and drive. And then they typically sent the car to a coach builder, whether it was Touring or Ghia, or in the case of this car went to Pininfarina. This car was at Pininfarina just being finished in '54 for its first owner in the US. And Hawthorne wanted to drive the 1,000 kilometers of Monza. Ferrari went to Pininfarina, brought the car back to Maranello, took the 2-liter motor out of this, a 2-liter 4-cylinder motor, put a 3-liter motor in it, gave it to Hawthorne. Hawthorne goes to Monza, wins the race, and then it comes back to Maranello. They take the 3-liter motor out of it, put the 2-liter motor back in it, and they send it to the US as a new car. But so Ferrari, you know. The other part that I like about it is it won the 1,000 kilometers of Monza with a 3-liter motor in it, and so Ferrari really liked that. So all the 3-liter sports racers that were built after this, they called them Monzas. The word Mondial is the Italian word for world. Ferrari won the world championship in a Formula 2 car in '52 with their 4-cylinder motor. There were so few teams in '52 in Formula One that the FIA, or the sanctioning body, decided we'll let Ferrari run their Formula 2 car in Formula One. Well, they won the championship in their Formula 2 car in Formula One. And so they were so happy with that, they decided the sports racing cars were becoming more popular. Racing like this was becoming more popular after the war. They decided to build a handful of these sports racers, and they put the 2-liter 4-cylinder motor in these cars, and they called it a Mondial because they had won the world championship with that motor in '52. So now this is '54, and they built about 30 of these with several Scaglietti-bodied a couple, Pininfarina-bodied a couple, most of them. But the point is that these cars became pretty popular at that time, and they won a lot of races. When the motors began to expire in these cars in the mid to late 50s, what happened was people put 283 Chevrolets in these and continued to race them. Successfully, the basic car was pretty good. If you look at the brakes and the suspension here, I mean, they're pretty robust things, you know, and the cars were very capable, especially with a little Chevrolet V8. They were really good. That 2-liter 4-cylinder motor on that wooden trolley over there, that belongs in this car. The original motor for this car was apparently for sale in Italy in the late 90s. We haven't been able to find who bought it, but whoever did probably has it in another one of these or even in another kind of sports racer. This owner would now like to find the original motor and reunite them. That hasn't happened yet, but we'll see. We serviced this car in January or February as a running car. And the owner picked it up and took it to Southern California. The car wasn't perfect. This car ran in Nassau sometime in the late 50s. The nose got smacked and it got fixed in a bad way and didn't really look like it should look. But he was okay with it, you know, because he wanted to play with it and use it and all that. So he drove the car all day the day he got it to Southern California. He parked it in his driveway in his $10 million estate, went in for a lemonade or something, and looks up and the landscaping truck had just backed into the nose of it and smacked the whole nose of it. So now, it's the slippery slope. He's insured with Haggerty, and Haggerty is now willing to remake the nose correctly on them. But now, do we fix the nose? Well, it had a big ugly roll bar back there, and it had other issues. So now, what are we gonna do? The expression I like to use, slippery slope. So it's all original sort of from there back, because 80% of the body is all original. It's still eligible to go to pedal and be okay, and I think he actually now kind of wants to do that. Like I told the guy, you know, he calls and he was crying on the phone, and I said, well, look at it like this. The landscape truck could have backed into the original rear of the car and left the nose. You know. Haggerty is going to fix the nose. Yeah. The transaxle needs a fix, and it's a 4-speed, and it's on that transmission jack. The guy's probably going to spend all in maybe as much as $250,000. Done, restored. This is a $3.5 to $4 million car. So if he spends $250,000 on it, it's an investment in his investment.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you enjoy this type of content, please do like, share, and subscribe. It will help the channel, and we will see you next time on Tiafo Garage.